The only time I saw men wash clothes in West Africa was after my husband fell into a latrine. Well, he wasn't my husband just yet. Long before we defined the relationship, I referred to him as mon mari, or my husband, to our Togolese friends for the sake of simplicity. Falling to the bottom of a 12-foot deep pit latrine is the darkest of nightmares for Americans and Africans alike. Now, if you're picturing that scene from Slumdog Millionaire, it wasn't that bad. The liquid filth that my husband fell into wasn't nearly as deep. And thankfully, he was wearing boots rather than flip-flops, so he was able to use the hard toes of his boots to crush the biblical insects that had bored holes into the mud walls. Meanwhile, I was having a relaxing breakfast with our gracious hosts atop Mount Agu in the highest village in Togo. Donnie Jigbe and his family had gone absolutely out of their way to welcome us and to procure supplies for our visit, bringing stuff up from the bottom of the mountain: Coca-Colas, loaves of bread, margarine that doesn't spoil in the heat, coffee, tea, and sweetened condensed milk. They boiled water for all of our bucket baths so we wouldn't catch a chill, and they gave up their most comfortable straw bed. It was typical West African hospitality. Our hosts were honored to have us, honored to share their food with us, and just doing everything they could to completely welcome us into their home. Matt had gotten to know Donnie and his village during his Peace Corps training at the foot of the mountain and while visiting one long weekend. Donnie was the cousin of Matt's host family, that was the connection. And when Matt went for that weekend, he recalls Donnie showing him everything, introducing him to everyone, sitting him down with the local chief and drinking home-brewed liquor. Donnie showed him all the local resources: the wells, the churches, the mosques, the radio tower, the fruit trees in the forest. And whenever they weren't touring about, Matt was relaxing underneath banana trees, reading and playing guitar. Basically, they treated him like family. During my first 2 of 3 years in West Africa, I was in Burkina Faso, a landlocked country just north of Togo. And there, they shared the same joy and honor in providing hospitality to others. Before every meal in Burkina, anyone who's eating will say to anyone nearby, "Vous êtes invité," you're invited, meaning, please come and share my food with me. And they mean it. On a daily basis, I was welcomed to share food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, tea, with my friends, my neighbors, and perfect strangers throughout Burkina Faso. One time, a fellow bus passenger with 2 peanuts offered to share her snack with me and gave me 1. Having spent time in Burkina Faso and Togo, I experienced the same West African hospitality. And I also witnessed similar gender norms and social conditions. For example, women, their responsibilities faced inward into the community, cooking and washing and cleaning and taking care of children, whereas men's responsibilities faced outward, going to market, dealing with officials, welcoming guests. So now, back to the mountain where my husband is in the trenches. There are 2 things you should know. 1, Togolese people are an extremely clean people. They wash 3 times a day at least, once before every single meal. And number 2, never in 3 years in West Africa had I seen a man do laundry. In fact, one fellow female empowerment volunteer organized a field day of gender swapping games just to show it was possible. Men cooking, washing, taking care of babies, whereas women were repairing bike tires and public speaking. Despite these gender roles, when Matt escaped that latrine and stripped down to bucket bathe with boiled water, Donnie took charge of washing his clothes. Which, by the way, Matt would have been happy to burn. But without a second thought, Donnie scooped up those rancid clothes, grabbed his brother, and made off for the nearest waterfall. I tagged along, eager to witness whatever was going to happen next. And instead of delegating the literally dirty work, Donnie washed the clothes and boots himself with laundry detergent, dish liquid, body soap, and bleach. As our host, Donnie felt utterly responsible for our well-being during our visit to his home. So it was without hesitation that he broke with entrenched local norms that, men never do the laundry. Who else could be of better service to his guests at a time like this? Donnie and his family were horrified and humiliated and so apologetic that this happened. And they told us that they don't even use this latrine themselves. In fact, they use a rocky cliff off the side of the mountain instead. By this point, Matt and I were laughing and Donnie was not. He promised to build a cement latrine, and he summed up his final thoughts on the matter. God is good. God is great. Thank God it wasn't Christina. Donnie begged me to come back one more time before leaving Africa, and I did go a few months later, and although his village had never had the opportunity to be granted a Peace Corps volunteer, he had personally built a modern cement latrine, honoring his promise to us and paving the way to welcome many others in the future. Matt and I returned home in 2010, and we now live in Washington, D.C. Matt's from South Carolina, I'm from New Jersey, and we like to say in Washington, D.C., the city has the efficiency of the South and the hospitality of the North. But despite our city's reputation, Matt and I, when we have guests over our home, we try to live up to the standards set by our West African friends. When you have 2 peanuts, share one. When dining outside, invite your neighbors. Always have a comfortable bed for your guests. And when accidents happen, the men do the laundry.